Training camp coverage brought to you by Consumer Tire. Breaking down all of the latest from today's practice. Here's Daryl Ryder and Coach Lance Reisland.
Day 15 of Browns training camp is in the books. Daryl Ryder joined by Spencer German, who is pinch hitting for Coach Lance Reisland. Here on the 92.3 The Fan YouTube channel, we, of course, are presented to you by Consumer Tires. Some good news on the injury front today. Reinforcements, Alex Wright, Mike Hall Jr., both back at practice today. Good to see. And for one of those guys, his presence was felt early. That was Mike Hall Jr. making plays right out of the chute, and he kept it going all afternoon long. Good to see 51 out there.
Yeah, it's been a while for him. We haven't seen him since that day very early on in camp where I know he kind of got injured and then got blown up on the same play by Quinshon Judkins, who was trying to throw like a hard block in there. And he's been out ever since, but the defensive line has kind of dominated continually without him. But he was one guy that early on in camp, Daryl, was part of that. He was making his presence felt almost every day, living in the backfield, and he kind of picked up right where he left off earlier on in camp. So definitely good to see some reinforcements for that defensive line that I do think is something the Browns probably feel like they don't have quite enough depth at yet, considering they've explored some of their options at defensive end. So yeah, certainly a welcome sight to have him back out there. I wasn't sure if he was going to get eased in and maybe just do individual, but he was out there doing everything, team and all. So.
Yeah, I threw him right in a run drill right out of the gate.
Yeah.
And again, making stops in the backfield. The notable did not practices for today. Carson Swessinger, we know he won't be back until next week. Cedric Tillman, Elton Jenkins did not practice today. Sam Kamara, Malik Collins, among the notables there, not on the field. Well, all right, let's get right into it. The quarterbacks today. I didn't think either one of them stood out. I kind of felt like Shedeur Sanders had himself a little bit of a rougher day than Deshaun Watson did. Both of them made a highlight play or two, but they were few and far between.
Yeah, I would agree with you on. I think Shedeur had a few more misses that you don't necessarily like. He sailed one that was almost intercepted, similar to what he did in the preseason game against the Bears. There's a few others that just kind of like weren't right, and there was a few other times where he was under pressure and kind of had to just throw it away. I think Deshaun's misses were a little bit closer to the target in most cases, but it was still a lot of the same. I'm 100% with you. Like every day I think we kind of show up hoping, well, hey, maybe something will really click for one of these guys today, and like we'll see him ball out. And I just don't think. I think it's been quite some time since we've seen like anybody really seize a day and run away with it. Yesterday we had the several touchdowns in the red zone, but touchdowns have kind of been hard to come by this week in general. There haven't really been a lot of shots downfield. Deshaun just continues to do, I think, what we saw him do on Saturday, which is dink and dunk to a degree and make some of those easy throws. And I kind of think that's all they're really asking him to do right now. So I don't know that we're going to see this thing open up a ton. Maybe Thursday is the opportunity for that when you get to play against another team. But we'll have to sort of see how that all goes. I think it was just another sort of what you'd expect day from both guys.
Yeah, we came into this week thinking that Shedeur Sanders was going to have to light the place on fire if he was going to catch Deshaun Watson and win this starting quarterback job. We're 2 practices into the week, Spencer, and I got to tell you, I've seen nothing from number 2 that tells me he's leapfrogging Deshaun.
I think that's fair. Again, and Deshaun hasn't necessarily done anything exceptional himself to like pull away any further, but I do think you're right. Like the whole point was this week was supposed to be the big sort of test to finalize this decision, with that joint practice being a massive part of that puzzle. And yeah, like he might still have a chance to do some of that and catch Deshaun on Thursday. But as far as the start of the week goes, haven't necessarily seen those days building towards something. So I still think the decision lies with it's probably Deshaun's job to lose going into these last few days before that preseason game Saturday. And I'm assuming Todd Monken will have a decision next week. I know he told us yesterday he's not quite there yet, but the tea leaves kind of point to he'd like to have that decision made and then have his starting quarterback playing at least a little bit for that third preseason game as a final dress rehearsal.
Yeah, he told us we're going to see Green, who we've not seen a lot of other than when he was in the 11-on-11 taking the dummy reps for the pass rush drill. We're going to see him in the fourth quarter of that third and final preseason game. So clearly,
get your popcorn ready.
He's clearly thought about the quarterback plan for that Patriots preseason finale. So we'll see how that plays out. All right, a little bit of a shuffle on the offensive line again today. Todd Monken kind of talked about. I mean, we've seen this throughout practice. The defensive line clearly has been the dominant unit when you're talking Browns O-line versus defensive line. They're clearly, after what we saw Saturday in Chicago, searching for answers when it comes to depth. Now, of course, Elton Jenkins wasn't able to go today, so Luke Whippler was your starting center in his place. DeJuan Jones was the starting right tackle for much of practice today. They're shuffling guys around with that second unit as well. KT Leviston has now been moved back into a tackle position from a guard spot. So round and round we go with the Browns' offensive line group.
Yeah, and Tom Monken talked about that a little bit before practice, that the guys like Austin Barber, who's a rookie, who they moved to guard this week, and even KT Leviston to see how he would run a tackle. They're just trying to test some things out and just kind of see like where guys can play. And I think that's the right thing to do, by the way, because when you have guys that you think are versatile, you might as well get a good read on, especially this time of year. Well, hey, can he play here? So you kind of know going into the season. And versatility is, I think, going to be something that maybe makes or breaks certain guys making this roster or not making this roster, especially at those positions. So I get the thought process, but I also can't help but wonder, there on the back of my mind, if some of that also points to there's just not a lot of depth in that offensive line group. And again, I know a lot of teams don't have offensive line depth, so it's not that the Browns are alone in that, but it does kind of feel like you got this big mystery of an offensive line that's your starting group right now, where we don't really know how good they're going to be because they're all so new. And you combine that with a lot of shuffling, still trying to figure out who's going to kind of play where and what's going on. I don't know that we should feel very confident if somebody gets hurt on that first group. And again, we're already dealing with injuries with that first group, that they're going to have the horses necessarily to kind of pick up the slack and continue moving forward. So that is, I think, at least a slight concern with that group specifically moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, this is the residue of not having a lot of depth on the offensive line a year ago, spending your entire offseason rebuilding them from left to right, up front, a whole new starting five, and hoping maybe some of those guys that you've now bumped down the depth chart that had to start games last year would step up. It just doesn't look like that's going to happen. An interesting end to practice today. We don't know definitively that Todd Monken cut practice short, but it sure felt like it. It sure sounded like it.
Yeah.
They were in the 12th practice period today. 10 minutes and 58 seconds remained on that clock. We had a close call with the quarterback, defender getting a little too close, as we all know in these practices. There's a halo, an invisible halo of protection around those quarterbacks, and you're not supposed to cross the line of demarcation there. That happened. We had Quinshawn Judkins getting popped. Maybe, hey, that's a little payback for what happened earlier.
It was not my call. It was Aiden Huntington, but that would have been funny if it was a little role reversal there.
It would have been, but Quinshawn was not on the dishing end. He was on the receiving end. Let's put it this way. Todd Monken huddled the team up. Could not hear from the bleachers specifically what Todd Monken was saying until he dropped F-bombs. And
you heard those.
I counted about a dozen of them. So he clearly was displeased. I also saw there as things were wrapping up, he yelled at Mike Rutenberg as well. So he was very clearly unhappy with how that final period of practice not only had to be cut short, it appears, but with what took place.
Yeah, I'm wondering if tomorrow we're going to get a press conference from Todd where he talks about his feelings getting hijacked again. This happened earlier in camp, by the way. There was the drill where they were in team and the offense had, I think, like a false start penalty. Then they messed up the play and had to re-huddle, and then they screwed it up again when they got back to the line. And Todd Monken, I think, threw his walkie-talkie and just walked off the field and ended practice. And so this is a similar situation. And the next day after that day, he told us, yeah, I kind of let my emotions get the best of me. I was hijacked and all that. I got to be better. I wonder if he's going to say the same thing about this, if there was really 11 minutes left in practice that he maybe could have utilized. But yeah, clearly they're trying to make sure, Todd, as physical as the camp that he's run, he's trying to make sure guys stay healthy. He doesn't want his key players especially getting hit, especially quarterbacks. That's always a no-no. And I do think some of that is you're building up to a week where you're going to have that joint practice on Thursday and maybe saving some of those hits for that practice where you could maybe let them be a little bit more physical. So we'll see what all that looks like then. But yeah, it was an interesting and abrupt end to practice, to say the least.
Yeah, and if you've been watching Hard Knocks on HBO featuring the Seattle Seahawks during this camp, they had a similar problem with their practice. Now, it didn't get cut early. They pulled the player off the field, and that was that. But, again, it'd be interesting to see what happens tomorrow in Todd Monken's press conference when we ask him about ending practice early. Okay, it's time for our second favorite part of the program, awards time. Let's go play of the day. I think there's two of them. One, the Shedeur throw, dropping it into the basket to Gage Larverdin, and then Deshaun hitting the deep ball to Isaiah Bond for a touchdown. I think those were really the only two plays, unfortunately, that we really got to saw today of the highlight variety.
Those were definitely the two biggest highlights. There was another play I liked where it was 4th and short. Casey Concepcion came from the right side to the left side in motion, and he had Quincy Williams on him because the defense had sort of a heavier package. And as soon as the ball was snapped, Casey sort of ran it out and just left Quincy in the dust, got the first down. So that was like a nice play design. But in terms of like just plays in general, the two big throws were the big ones. I think Shedeur maybe gets a slight nod because his throw was just a little bit more like, hey, got to drop it in the bucket. Deshaun's was wide open because the corner had fallen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think definitively those were the best two plays of the day.
All right, and the camper of the day.
We going in different directions here?
Well, I'm going to let you go. Since you're the guest, I'm going to let you go first. Who's your camper of the day?
I'm going to go with Mike Hall. First day back out there, and, you're always kind of thinking when a guy's been injured or not practicing, like, is he going to ease back in? The fact that he hit the ground running kind of picked up where he left off when he was dominating early in camp and really getting in the backfield and making plays. And it was constant. Like, he was in on a sack at one point. He was in on a couple run plays. He was really blowing up a lot of those plays, and a lot of it was early in practice too. So good to see him back out there, and I was going to give the nod to Mike Hall.
I would agree with you there, but just so that we can make this somewhat interesting for people to continue to watch, I'm going to go with Denzel Ward. We spoke to him before practice, had some interesting things to say. Highlights on our social media channels if you want to check out.
He called me out.
He did, by the way,
for something I didn't do.
And I have to I do have to admit that's part of the reason I am picking him as my camper of the day. You caught a stray in the press conference today.
I did catch a stray. There was a play last week when they were inside, and I know you remember it, Daryl. It was a red zone drill, ball thrown up to Denzel Boston. It was Denzel on Denzel. And
in the end zone too.
Denzel went up and got it. Denzel Boston caught the ball, but only got 1 foot in. And then he stumbled out of bounds. And I remember watching the play back because Denzel Boston actually rolled into a family that was standing on the side, and you kind of felt bad for him. And there was dissenting opinions on if it was a touchdown or not in real time. We went back and watched the tape after, and we ruled it wasn't a touchdown. But I went back and checked. I didn't tweet the play out. I didn't say anything about the play, and I know some other members of the media did, and he thought that I was the one who did it. So I took the blame for others in the media who called it a touchdown.
You stood in there and took the shot like a man, false information or not. How about this? You were falsely accused.
I was falsely accused. Now I know what it feels like.
Shame on Denzel. But he's still going to be my camper of the day for picking on you. And then also, too, I counted no less than 3 pass breakups in 11 on 11 today. So there you go. Our campers of the day. That's going to do it for Spencer and myself. We will be back again tomorrow for day number 16. The precursor to the big one on Thursday between the Browns and the Bills, that joint practice, which is basically going to be the equivalent of a preseason game or feel like a preseason game because those snaps are going to be so important for the first team, offense and defense. Not expected to get a lot of playing time, if any, come Saturday down at Huntington Bank Field. So that's going to wrap it up for us out here at Cross Country Mortgage Campus in Berea. Thanks as always for watching here on the 92.3 The Fan YouTube channel, of course, presented as always by Consumer Tire. So for Spencer German, Daryl Ryder, signing off from Browns Camp 2026. We'll talk to you on Wednesday.